Hello guys, welcome back to another Thursday. So that was interesting. That was an interesting start to the stream. I'm gonna let a few people just connect first here before I continue. If anyone finds their, hopefully you found something better to do. But maybe a few people will find their way back. So I'm just gonna give it a few moments. Hello, Duck Cat, welcome. Just gonna give people a little chance to drop in now, and then give a brief explanation of what just happened. I have to keep my, I'm on call now 24/7. Welcome back. Hey, from Poland, Big T as well. Oops, Jacob, Poland here. Hello, Imphenzia. Hello, welcome. Welcome back, everyone who's joining in again. Still gonna give it a few moments for people to hook up, connect. Lee, woo! Welcome. And Dima S. I wonder if, how many people? There's concurrent viewers, 0 it says. So I'm quite impressed that you managed to chat if there's 0 concurrents. And thanks, Cyberness. All the best for your game. Love from India. Cool. How are you, bro? Yashi saying, yeah, I'm good, thanks. I think some people maybe expected me to start streaming next Thursday again. Sebastian Bergman is here. Hey, welcome, welcome. And not butter. Okay, everything's going great. Thanks, and glad you like the videos. Thanks. So just a few more moments. We'll give it. Just maybe should I just do a little follow up in? Let's see if I can check my Discord here as well. Just do a little announcement that it's back on. Stream is up and running again. Oh, well, I nearly put that in the wrong Discord. And Mia PC also made it all the way back. Thank you. And Matus. Oh, Czech Republic, welcome. That's good. Julia Alder. You always do your dab when you come in. I have to do that. A person is here with a very long name. Ridiculously long even. Cool. Ooh. Okay, so Okan is saying, almost 1 year ago I started to learn Unity. Now I have a job. Thank you for your videos. I love you. Thanks. Love coming back. I'm glad. Yeah, Laomania. So off the rails. Everyone's coming in. All right. So I'll just brief you a little bit of what happened then. So it's a week since we launched Line War, and it's been going where, in terms of technical things, it's gone very, very well. We've had the server park up and running. It's scaling up the servers, building them in the cloud. We're using Vultr as a cloud hosting provider. We have API calls that sends out, brings up a new Linux machine, installs Ubuntu on it, and spins up, installs 6 instances, that's a tongue twister, of Line War server. Make sure there's a new, checks for the latest version, downloads it, installs it. Starts the instances up, and all of that has been running really, really good. And dynamically through the different peak hours of the day and stuff, we're monitoring it. It spins up the servers, it serves all the players, and then as it calms down a little bit through the different hours of the day, they start to decommission them themselves. So that's been working really great, which is a huge relief, actually, because releasing a multiplayer game where that's all you have, it's the multiplayer and a sandbox where you can do some testing, but we really, really have to keep that multiplayer going. And it's been going really, really good. And then today, for some reason, just before we finished the first week of sales now with the launch discount, then, and just as about to go on the stream, we had a glitch where we had people couldn't matchmake, and people were saying very friendly about it, by the way, which is really nice. We freak out, of course, because it needs to work. That's the key thing. It has to work. It's a multiplayer game. It has to work. And so we're when we have a lot of players and the leaderboard has gone crazy, we have a lot of people playing the game now, which is super cool. Well, in our terms, it's a lot of people. And then it could happen now, and what happened now is there's a fringe case. So when a top tier player started a search and reached and narrowed down his search and well, he started to spread the search across the entire span, he could actually block other people from finding matches, because they'll go, oh, here's a match, but they couldn't join because they didn't qualify for that level, and then they didn't start to do their own lobby. So it's been fixed now. We had to, so in that little drop that we did, My coworker Christian, or business partner, he identified the problem, patched it. We check it into Git repository. We use Azure DevOps with the Git repository. We walked through the changes, and we had to do an emergency because usually we do a lot of testing first, but now it's important to push it out. Just checking in the Discord to see if it's back. So deployed it, and then did the upload procedure to Steam, because you have to just package up the content and push it up, and it sends out the update, and we've got people matchmaking again, so that's great. But I'll keep a close lookout, and he's keeping an eye on to make sure everything's good. All right, so good evening again. Yeah, welcome back. You don't have to worry about the release number. It's actually so it's still release 34 patch 7, but it didn't change the version number, Jules. It was just a client-side patch only, so we just pushed that out to avoid it happening again, hopefully. So I'll be able to speak a little bit now about if you have any specific questions, do at Imphenzia, so I see it light up in orange. And in this video, I was going to spend maybe half an hour or so just speaking a little bit about creating Line War, and especially leading up to the release process, some of the prioritizations that we had to do, some of the concerns. And Anders is asking how big our dev team is and what are their roles. Yeah, it's just me and Christian. It's only the two of us, which is quite crazy to try to create a game like this on 2 people. So Christian's main responsibility is the core game design. He does the AI programming, most of it, well, all of it actually. Net code, all the object-oriented architecture for the entire project, everything in the core game he does. I do a lot of maybe common and especially client-side stuff. I do all the modeling, animations, procedural world generation, which is coding, sound, music, and everything that's facing the player pretty much on how the units look and behave, and trails and visual effects and shader programming, and putting a lot of that together. And then we share a lot of the stuff when it comes to different type of web things and the server work. I do a lot of the server deployments and some of the web work, and he does a lot of the back-end web work. So it's been absolutely crazy. So, okay, and we've got Dr. PC, best Unity advanced tutorial series. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but please feel free to add some comments so I understand, because I don't know. So, Jules Womba, is there a minimum number of games to play before you get to the bottom of the leaderboard? 10. We decided not to show people that have only played 9 games or less. So you have to play 10 games, and the reason being that we could have some fringe cases where someone jumps in, plays 2 games, and shoots to the top of the leaderboard. So we need to make sure that enough people are playing the games so it equalizes a little bit. So Phil Dupont, database versus front end. Well, we're running a lot of the stuff is actually Steam services. So the matchmaking is Steamworks lobby service. We create lobbies and search for them and put some metadata in them so we can find them. And then we push match results and stuff like that to Azure Table. And then we have an SQL database as well for the player ranks. And we have a job that processes the skills and everything. And then logging is Azure log analytics, so we push a lot of the development logs there. Anything that the servers log, we push to Azure log analytics, so we can search it with queries and stuff to see what's going on. And then we use cloud analytics as well from Unity to get crash reports and stuff. So okay, and so we started this. Just a brief history. I tend to speak forever when I speak. For some odd reason, I just can't be quiet. But I'll give you I'll try to stick to 5 minutes to give you a brief recap. So in 2019, early, Christian, he contacted me and said he had a great game idea, and I actually listened to him. I get quite a lot of mails about people asking about, I've got this great idea, and usually they're very grand, quite cool. But it's like, let's create the next Fortnite, but with 200 multiplayers instead in the same lobby and make the graphics a bit better. So I love shooting high and having great ambitions, but a lot of the projects are very difficult and unattainable at that point, so start easier. But when Christian contacted me, it was really interesting, and he actually invited me we rented a little office space in Stockholm so we could meet for about 2 hours, because I didn't know Christian before this. And he had prepared a presentation. He brought a board because he developed a board game. Over 20 years he'd been developing that game. So he's created it, and he brought the board game and then presented the idea. He wanted to turn that into a computer game, and he had this vision that you draw commands like you do in a World War II documentary. When you see them, you have all these defense lines and attack paths and rendezvous points and stuff. So he showed me slides about it, and he held up his big hand-drawn playing board that he had created. And I really latched onto that idea. I thought, this is great, because when I played StarCraft 2 and stuff, I didn't really, I couldn't get fast enough to operate everything that was needed. So I think if I can draw commands and the units will do it, I can just sit back and think a little bit strategically and do it. So I was on board. But for me, it was Christian had come from leaving his previous job to focus on this full time. And then I was in a position where I had my day job and I had Imphenzia to run on the side. So I had to gradually shift over. And then I broke my collarbone at the same time, falling off my motocross at that time. If you check my history videos, you can see that part as well, maybe. But I gradually switched over from my consultancy job. And by the end of 2019, I was doing full-time Line War. And then we've spent a long time creating the game. Ever since then, it's been at least full-time, but usually more. We do, at minimum, is 40-hour weeks, and then usually could lead up in some cases where I do the procedural world generation, or when I do a lot of maybe the intense trailer work, or if I do animations or whatever, then we shoot up to like 60 hours and stuff. And same for Christian. He gets also like really intense periods where we need to push out and do some maybe a big refactoring of the AI and stuff. And we kept everything under the radar because this was a new concept, so we didn't really want to reveal it. And that is one of the things I want to touch upon, because generally I tell everyone, share what you're working on as much as possible through the entire development process. Because actually getting exposure and having people see the game is very difficult. It's such a big noise floor, big, massive noise. So it's difficult to punch through. So, but we wanted to keep it. I agreed with Christian that let's keep this under the radar. So if you look at my earlier videos, I said I was working on something, but we didn't want to give this thing away with the visual commands until we had gotten a lot further in. Plus, there's a lot of risk involved. Like, what if people hate it? What if we don't like it? What if other people don't like it? People don't like it. So we were very aware of that in the beginning. So after that, we spent a long time, and we came to we've had a playable alpha all the way through, nearly. Even after the first few months, we had the netcode in place, synchronizing clients, and we started with just one unit, which was the tank, and I've got some really primitive footage of what that looked like. And then we've played the game since. So we added more like artillery units. We started to add aircraft came first, actually before the Navy, and then we added the Navy and worked really rigorously with the sprint planning and everything like that. And then finally, after we were going to potentially release into early access last summer, we were thinking about it, because we felt at that point that early access would be the right way to go. If you don't know what Steam early access is, you probably know everyone, but I'll tell anyway. Steam early access is when you release a game and it's not finished. And you tell all the customers that the game is not finished, so join us along the ride and let us develop it while you give feedback. And our main purpose for doing that, if we were to do it last summer, was that we really needed to get a lot of feedback on the play system, on the visual command system, and on the balancing. But we decided to keep working, and we didn't release it last summer because we also needed to build up this wishlist count, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that soon, because it's important to build up some anticipation before the game release, because it's so difficult to get noticed when you do release a game. So we knew that there's no confirmed digits, and we can't confirm anything either, but we had heard at least that there's some semi-magic number of trying to obtain 10,000 wishlist ads in Steam before you release, because then it's a higher probability for the algorithm to potentially put your game a little bit higher when you release it. So that was something we needed to keep working on and just adding it. Plus, we wanted to develop the game further. So we didn't release it last summer, and we kept working on it. We had alpha players actively playing the game, and let me tell you this. If you're going to make a game and release it on Steam or anywhere, if you make a multiplayer game, I cannot stress this enough, the most tricky thing at all is creating a multiplayer game and having people play against each other. We were fortunate that a number of our alpha testers were extremely active and really, really helpful to matchmake and test a lot of the stuff. But we probably had maybe 150 alpha testers, and maybe 90% of those were very inactive, and we were debating a lot. Don't they like the game? Don't they have time? Or what's the reason? If you apply for the alpha access, why wouldn't you play it more? And we had a lot of thoughts about it, and we discussed it back and forth. Is the game not good? Is it, don't they have time? You know, all these things. Don't they find someone to play with? We speculated so much in this. But at some point, we just decided we have to at some point, we have to focus. We're still going to develop the game. We're going to release it. Let's get the feedback from the people that are active, and we won't try to get the other ones to play it anymore. Regardless of what the reason is, you know, we're so committed to the game anyway, we'll just move forward. And then we had some different things to encourage play. But what I want to say is that if you're trying to make a multiplayer game, especially if it's your first game, it's probably the most difficult thing aspect. So the netcode is tricky, maybe to synchronize between two PCs, but that's a walk in the park compared to trying to get enough testing to go, like especially in a game like an RTS game where you have to have input from people. They have to learn how to play the game. We tried to make something different, so it's not the usual drag click to select units, and so we had to teach people on how the command system would work and things. So if you're starting out and when you create a game, I would 9 times out of 10 I'd recommend don't go multiplayer. Start with a single player game in that case. Make it work, release it, learn that process, because you'll spend a lot of time otherwise trying to do something on the multiplayer front. And I'll come a little bit more to that as well. So I'm still on the early access topic. So as we pushed through the autumn and came into this year, then we got a lot more people playing the game. We learned a little bit about the early access process, that maybe the promotional engine doesn't take early access games. They don't maybe necessarily lift them as high on the launch. And for a game like Line War, where it's multiplayer only, we had to maximize the player count. So that was one of the reasons why we thought, okay, should we go early access or should we not? And I also speak to Laowa, who's in the chat now, who released Fireworks Mania, and he said, well, when you think about it, if you have a complete game, you can release it and then you can add to it in the future. And a lot of games, like I keep coming back to Fortnite, for example, that was early on, it was in early access, but that changes all the time. They'll add things, they'll remove things, they'll add play modes, remove play modes. And we settled a little bit with the idea that we've got a game, you can fully play it. It's a 1v1. Well, fair enough, you can only play 1 versus 1. But that was our core gameplay at that point anyway. And we don't have single player because we were also afraid that if you have single player, sure, we might sell a lot more copies, but what if all the people that buy it go straight into single player mode and then we'll still have an empty multiplayer queue? So that was another concern that we've had. And then we released the game on Steam Next Fest, which I can also advise people. If you're making a serious attempt at creating a game, you should look at participating in Steam Next Fest, because that was a great exposure. So we released the game, pretty much the full game actually, we released it, but as a downloadable free demo. And then we had about 35,000 matches played during the 2 months following up, because we decided to keep it available even after launch. We wanted the extra visibility, and we saw that as a good opportunity to do beta testing, like an open beta, to get a lot of the statistics, see that our service scaling was working and everything like that. So at that point we thought, okay, so we've got a game that's fully playable, 1v1, 40,000 matches have been played on it. We're happy with the balance, we're happy with the stability for the most part, the features, there's no game breaking bugs that we are aware of. And from the original design, a lot of the stuff is implemented, so we decided to go maximize our chances and let's go for a non-early access game. We'll release it and we'll control it with the price point instead. So instead of charging like $30-40 or something, we released it at $19.99, well, it's $20, with a discount in the beginning to try to encourage as many people as possible to jump on board and play the game. And as we add content in the future now, so when we're going to add some team modes, we're going to also add technologies, which is pretty cool. And as we add that feature, those type of features, and also as we add single player at some point later on when we have the capability to do so, then we can increase the price of the game and we'll keep polishing it. But anyone who's bought it in the previously or in the current state, they'll just get that one for free. So that's how we're planning to do it. So one of the craziest thing, I think, when it came, I should first I'll check if there are any questions here. So Phil Dupont is asking, does your experience support the 10K wishlist concept? Yes, it does, I think. I'm not sure yet how much I can reveal, because I think there might be some NDA stuff with Steam that I'm not aware of, and I have to discuss it with my business partner too. But we passed 10K wishlists at least, and went beyond that a bit. And for we really wanted to hit the trending list, and I'll show you, maybe I can show like just some, I was doing a lot of monitoring before we released here. So let's see if I can get, I'll sort here on, I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. So here I started to monitor it, and let's see, I'm going to share my screen. Where did my browser session go? Here. So I started, so this is just on the Steam website. I started to grab screenshots to keep track of, because the backend doesn't really show this. So you can you keep track of your wish list entries and things, but it doesn't show anything in terms of where you're placed in upcoming and stuff. So if I do this, you can see that this was on 5 days before our release. We started to pop up on popular upcoming releases. That was our, I think it was our first entry there. And we were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 there. And on Steam releases 11,000 games last year, I think it was, and maybe 9 or 10,000 the year before, I'm not sure. And I can't remember the math, but I think it's like 40 or something titles a day. And we were very, very concerned before, because it's so, like, in terms of getting seen outside of Line War, we did try a lot of, to get help from, should I put my face on here as well? I can do that. Hello. So we tried to get some outside assistance as well from streamers to stream the game, and that's time consuming as well. And we worked a little bit with a PR firm to help us with that, but we had no budget really to go big on any form of marketing. And then we've tried some Reddit posts. We've tried to be a little bit active in, releasing some tweets and some YouTube stuff. And I've mentioned it on my channel. But my channel is mainly like not RTS players. So it was more game developers and blenders, you guys. It's good, creative crowd. So stuff that I could show on my channel doesn't necessarily translate that well into someone wanting to get an RTS game. So this was 5 days. We were really excited, just the fact that we started to come in. And you can see this column here that a lot of the sort order here was that we had like 3rd of May, 4th of May here, and then 5th of May. So we were hoping as the closer we got to release, we would creep up this list and eventually got to get somewhere here to the top. And then we can see, let's see, 5 days before release, that was, let's see if I can find something else. I should sort these out a little bit. 2 days before release. Okay, this is a different view. Steam has got a lot of different views. So that was a slightly different. We got, this is 41 hours before release. So that theory held up a little bit. We were on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th place then of popular and upcoming. And we started to see the traffic build a little bit to the site when this happened too. And then 22 hours before release, we had made it up to slot number 3, and we noticed that this Chaos Gate, which is Warhammer 40k, that was a premium title. I don't know what the budget is, but it's a huge game, I think. And then Citizen Sleeper, we've seen a lot through this process as well. So we were really happy to be in this region, and we could start to see a lot of the activity on the page and stuff. And then we had 17 hours before launch. Okay, that was a different view. I'm just trying to go through popular upcoming 17 hours. So we were popping up and down a little bit like that. 16 hours before launch, we're still up there, quite close. And then, let's see. So important thing as well, when you do check those type of ratings, go into an incognito browser, because otherwise it'll detect that you've, if we're making an RTS game, so we looked a lot about the RTS genre and stuff in general. So I think that takes into account what you're interested in. So we start in an incognito browser just to make sure that it came in as a, and I also think this is regional, so that could be important to know. And then let's see, we've got post-launch here. And here, which was absolutely crazy. When we finally did release, we found that we actually managed to shoot up to new and trending. And this was on the main page. And we actually even climbed above Chaos Gate, Warhammer 40k, and Citizen Sleeper. And we were really excited about that because we were scared because it's very important. We're like our main concern. I mean, financially, we knew it's a big risk anyway. We've invested 3 years of our time, so even if we make a fair bit of money, it's probably not. It's going to take a long time before we recover the 2 employees full time for 3 years. It's and plus we're a very like small genre when it comes to RTS games. So we were excited about that, but my main concern, and also Christian's, I think, to a large part, is just how will the multiplayer pool behave? How can we make sure that the matchmaking, that was what's keeping me the most nervous through the whole time. What if people can't find a match and stuff? So it's super scary. And then another thing is that the other games that you saw on those, let's see, I can say here, if I could sort the RTS genre there. Dune released, I don't know if we debated if this was a good or a bad thing, but Dune Spice Wars released 2.5 weeks before us, RTS game. So we were quite concerned about that. I think ultimately it's good. Anything that brings players to the RTS genre is probably good. So, I mean, that's a big title with a big team, so it's difficult to compete with that. But what I should say as well is that I think my theory is that we might have sold fewer copies than a lot of those other titles. But I think what kept us on the new and trending list, I can go full screen again, full face. I think what kept us on the new and trending list for the full week is the fact that when we released the multiplayer game, a lot of people started to play the game and they kept playing it. I think that the play time plays a big part, not only the sales, the amount of sales you get, but it's. I think there are two more parameters. One is the play time, the active concurrent play time, or for anyone who bought the game, how long do they actually spend in the game, and then also the reviews. And that was another thing we were quite scared about when it comes to reviews, because we created a different experience. A lot of people that create RTS games, they copy an existing. They'll go with a safeguard. You control the units in the same way. You have to have X amount of factions. You have to have loads of different resources and different type of units, and you control them in the same way. But we knew that when we set out that this was a huge risk of, we wanted to create something that we wanted to play and make something totally different. But how would that be received by someone who's coming in from an RTS game thinking, oh, well, this is weird. Like, I can't even control my units the way I'm expecting it. I can't even click on a unit. What's this? So I was very scared of the reviews for how they would fare. I don't know, pan out. But we were very happy when the reviews started to come in that people actually got the idea, and they played the game quite a lot of hours actually, and matchmake, and a really friendly Discord community where people found themselves and they started to matchmake a little bit. And so overall, I'd say that when the reviews started to come in, like, wow, this is the most innovative RTS I've seen in a long time, refreshing. It enables you to do stuff without the high actions per minute. And when those started to come in, I'm like, yeah, great, people are getting it. That, you know, it's something new and different, and it'll take a little bit of time to get used to. But when you get the hang of it, it's going to enable you to do stuff that you cannot do in the other RTS games, because you don't might have the dexterity in your fingers to do it. So that was a bit of a recap of why we did not go for early access. And I think that was before the shutdown of the stream that I had to pause there. But the other thing that we did not want to do is, so we didn't go early access, and we also didn't want to go free to play. And the reason was mainly for the free to play choice is that I think we would have missed a large portion of the new and trending. And when you release a game, I touched on that before, even if you try to promote it through YouTube, through Reddit posts, through forums, through Twitter, I don't know, anything that you Facebook or whatever, social media, if you try to get streamers to play it, I think what you get in return for exposure when you launch on Steam's platform, you cannot really compare the two. That getting that exposure on the new and trending, I'd say, is very key when you do release it, if you plan to make it your living. So that is, there's if your goal is to create a fun game that you can like maybe do in your spare time, you don't rely on it financially to support you, and you want to release it, you can do it without all of this. Anyone who can find it will be able to buy it and enjoy it and stuff. But I think if you're going to try to make it like your living, your commercial success, that should be one of your key concerns. And maybe the gutsiest thing we did, and that's what's actually received a lot of the bad feedback. It's because we didn't go for a single player option, and there are a couple of reasons for it. The question is very easy to ask, like, why no single player? And we had a lot of bad not a lot, but we had a couple, 3-4 reviews like, why didn't you add single player? And we have, like, it's difficult to answer that because it's like 7 answers that we have to answer. And, people wouldn't probably have the patience to listen to it. But we have our reasons, and I'll try to summarize them a little bit. First of all, it's a passion for us to create a multiplayer game that you can play against someone. So that was our core business. We really enjoy playing against another human. So maybe not from a financial perspective, or like you'd sell out a lot more copies if it's a single player game, but we actually want to create this one-to-one experience, or even teams where you can, because we can spend an hour after a game just talking about it. Oh, do you remember when I did that? Oh, and you came in there and you sunk my ship and you came in with submarines there and I did that. And we can literally spend like half an hour to an hour just speaking about the game. So that's the type of experience we wanted to go for. So that was one of the reasons. And second of all, we created this visual command system, like I mentioned, and it's you draw the commands and you have to make a lot of decisions and try to get the AI to actually play it like a human. That would be very, very difficult to do. You can simulate a lot of stuff, do algorithms that'll like sweep search coastlines and mimic the way you draw it, and you could try to scan all the units, create heat maps, and analyze where's the human player strong, where should I direct my units, how should I do. But if we tried to do that, I'd say that we'd have to add like another year just to try to add that particular feature, and we just still didn't even know if the game was going to be in the state that it is today. Is it going to be fun? Are people going to enjoy it? So investing another year developing that single player feature for something that maybe would or would not work, it wasn't feasible for us to do that. We had to get the game out and start to get to play. So that was another reason for doing it. And another reason is that we develop the game and we balance everything. So when you play human versus human, you can say, okay, this is a bit overpowered, we have to nerf this is going to go up, that's no good, we have to change the command system. If we were to create single player content meanwhile at the same time, then then we have to maintain and up that. So as soon as we make a change, we have to make sure, did we break anything in the single player? Do we have to recreate how the single player AI draws the commands? So that probably adds even more time. And we don't have the time and resources. It's only the two of us creating the entire game and doing all the marketing. We had publisher negotiations as well that we decided to opt out of in the end and self-launch it and things. So it was not feasible for us at that point to release the single player. And the third option was, so if we have, and I mentioned this briefly before, if we have the single player option and people buy it and people start to play a lot in the single player, we'd still have maybe the same problem of the multiplayer queue being empty and not so many people playing it. So, and I've got more reasons for it, but in terms of feedback, people were very quick to like buy the game without, even though it said, we even clarified it a little bit more to say that this is a multiplayer game, but people bought it and said, this is worst decision ever, it should have single player, this will fail within like a week, or this is the worst decision ever, and these guys lack, these guys lack ambition, and it's terrible to see that they don't know what they're doing, and it's so much stuff like. But you have to put that aside, and we're old enough to do that. And at the same time, luckily enough, we had a lot of positive feedback, and we had a lot of people that actually understand the game and maybe understand a little bit more about what our limitations are as a small indie development team. A lot of those people actually acted in the comments, in the discussion boards, and counter and say, hey, listen, if you want a single player game, you should probably look at another game for now and come back, wishlist this one and add it. So I'm very thankful for those that have actually helped us out a little bit in that comment storm. And it's not like we're not planning to add it. We're probably going to do it at some point. And another reason is that we planned a little bit further on, and we probably have to start with a lighter single player version where instead of it being like an AI that does play like a human, and like if you want an AI to play like a human, why not just play a human? Maybe. But we could possibly at some point do a little bit of a simpler AI, so you can create scenarios, maybe like an editor where you can set up these different scriptable scenarios where you start in a certain position, you have an objective to take out like an enemy airport or like a base or something, and then there are pre-scripted defense lines and attack paths that will trigger if you get close. And then you could maybe get an achievement score if you do it within a certain amount of time or with a minimum amount of casualties. So we're looking at that type of single player content at some point. but now is not the right time. We've decided to still, even though the pressure would be like commercially maybe to squeeze that in right now, our priority is still going to be people that are enjoying to play against each other. That's our core target audience, so we want to keep satisfying them because that's what we ultimately made the game for. But as a backup plan, if the player pool were to reduce and people are finding it difficult to find a match, which is not the case at the moment, but if that was to happen, then we can probably prioritize and make some forms of single player content earlier rather than later. Just so the people that got it didn't feel like they got conned out of money. And that's another aspect. It's weird. I mean, when you look at the free-to-play type of games and Roblox, people quite easily spend like $10, $20 on something quite superficial and super like an avatar or something. And I find it a little bit difficult, at least in my mind, to say like, okay, if I buy this game, it's multiplayer only. I can play it for like 2 months at least without any fear, because we've got hundreds of players playing and matching up, and thousands of matches every day. So like even in the worst case scenario that it would fade over like the next 2 months and single play would be coming down the line, I don't really see the argument that it was wasted money, because it's like the price of 2 Big Macs or something. So okay, anyway, to the questions, if you've got any questions. So yeah, so Gisela maybe add some sort of a scenarios where there's a bit of stupid AI, and that would be the case in that case on those triggered scenarios, I think. So try to do at Imphenzia. I'm going to try to capture if there's questions to me elsewhere. And we've got Elacor. Did you make this also while working a day job? Trying to make my own indie game after hours, and it can be tough to get in a rhythm, I find. Yeah, so I started off balancing it. So I think I worked, in the beginning, I only worked 1 or 2 days a week on Line War and 3 days as a consultant. My day job was IT security. And then after a few months, I saved up money as much as I could. And then I switched down. So I only worked as a consultant 1 day a week. I was called Friday Stefan in my job. I was super happy to have an employer that actually allowed me to do that, because I came in every Friday. It's like, oh, here's Sweden. Or Stefan, it's Friday. Nice to see you. And then I switched over to full-time and beyond. But at the same time, I've done my Imphenzia YouTube channel. And that's actually taken, and my asset work. So I've had a lot of stuff going on, and I've created some tutorial stuff, and well, you know, my Thursday videos and things. So I've done a lot of stuff like that on the side, but not a day job as such. But then I've also freelanced in different sections. So I had to take some jobs because as we prolonged the release, I was in a situation where I needed to make some more money. The YouTube it brings in a bit, but living in Sweden, it costs quite a lot. So it doesn't cover by far any costs of living. So I did the 2 different type of freelance jobs where I could do some modeling in my spare. Well, I had to actually pause Line War for 6 weeks at some point to focus on that. So I agreed that with Christian. But for your question, I think it would be our ambition to create a multiplayer RTS is probably quite a complicated one. So it depends on what type of game you're making. So if you're doing a different type of game, it could be definitely viable to look at Laowa, for example. Look that up, search for Fireworks Mania. He created that while working a full-time day job. He's got, I think he's got 2 kids at least, or maybe 3 like me. So he did that in his spare time. He did some live streaming at the same time, and he created that game, and that was a huge success, I think. So it's definitely possible. You can do it. It's just discipline and trying to fit the time in when you have it. All right, let's have a look. Arvid Schönberg, you could monetize a bit more by adding RME themes like unit designs. Yes, I agree. We're looking at things like that. The problem with adding more unit designs would be like if someone buys it, it has to look very similar so the opponent knows what type of unit it is. So, but if we keep the profile somewhat similar and change maybe the visual designs, and the good thing is that you could even change the weapon slightly, so you could have a tank with double cannons, or even a railgun if you wanted to make it look like that, as long as the damage is the same and that it doesn't modify. We can't sell anything that would modify the abilities of the units themselves. But for sure, people that want to support the game and find that interesting to add a little bit of extra content, that's one viable thing. And when I add some more soundtrack to it, I was thinking about adding the soundtrack for a supporter price if someone wants to buy that. So Miguel DC, you're also known for Blender modeling content. Was modding mods for Line War ever a thought? Connecting the two communities. We're thinking about, I briefly touched on this before as well, and we're thinking about modding support in the future. The reason why we don't have it at the moment, or don't plan to do it in any recent time, is that we're afraid of our player pool. We need to keep it super compact and playing the same game experience. If we were to allow mod, people would diverge off into different mods, and we'll see different communities like, you should play this one instead. No, you should play this one. So maybe further along the line, that would be cool, but not at the moment. Let's see. Justin Fats, maybe a practice mode or a tutorial mode would suffice without cannibalizing multiplayer. I noticed some reviews talked about wanting to learn before playing multiplayer. I agree. So we have the sandbox, and I understand that that's not sufficient for everything. In the sandbox, you can toggle, you can start a game, you can toggle between two players, you can learn how to draw the commands, you can test out everything. Let's say you put an artillery line, you walk up with guys, you see how they behave, how many did I get, how many didn't. You can practice seeing what's the vision like in forests, how many guys does it take to, or how many infantry would it take to knock out a factory in X amount of minutes. So you can practice that in the sandbox. We did actually start to create interactive tutorials, but we actually backed out of that sprint. We did that just before Christmas. We started to say, well, the game has to have interactive tutorials, but it's also a tricky thing to add. You might not sound that at first, but the reason why it's tricky is that, first of all, we came up with, we planned everything. We had about 30 different tutorials that you needed to make. And when we started to convert the sandbox editor so we could record these scenarios, so let's say, in the tutorial 1, it should spawn 5 infantry, and your job was to draw an engaged path through a territory and let those conquer that territory, and then that would be a success. So we began to create the editor for it and everything, and then we realized, okay, well, first of all, we have to create the recording mechanism to do that and save it. And then we have to create the scripting language to start spawning units. And then, okay, we have to analyze if the player drew the command correctly or within a certain criteria. And if it didn't, we need to have UI that presents, oh no, you drew it a little bit weird. You should try again. And then we have to back up the logic or rewind or restart it or something every time. And then draw it again and go, okay, that's pretty good, but you didn't quite get the tip in the right place. And then we had to think about, okay, so when you succeed, when is there a success? So maybe that would be when you have a fast forward, and we worked a little bit on highlighting effects in the game and on the command bar to highlight different things. And that was just the first tutorial, and then we'd have to create maybe 30 of those to have it gradually build up, and having all of these validation criteria to say, okay, you did it right, you did it wrong, you have to do it again. It turned quickly into something that would take a few months to make, or 3 months or something. And then we also have the risk that as we continue to develop the game, if we change the command system, let's say we want to learn a lot and iterate and change it, or if we change the seed generation so all the worlds will look different, then we're suddenly in a situation where all those tutorials would have to be re-recorded or converted or upgraded. So in the end, we looked at a little bit on other games, and we tried to figure out how many people are actually playing the tutorials, because everyone's claiming that they're super important, but how many actually go through them. And for one, I press escape on any game that's got a tutorial for some reason. I'm like, let me play. And that even goes for like quite complicated games. Maybe that's stupid. But we decided to build in video tutorials instead. And we can grow that library, and we made it so that you can watch them in the game. Instead of like saying you can find them on YouTube, or you can go XYZ to find them or include them, we bake them into the game with a video player. So when you're in the sandbox, you can go to the tutorials like a little video icon, and it brings up a panel, and you can watch them and rewind and say, okay, so this is how I create, this is how I draw the commands, because it's very important that people see that it's a different game. So that I sound like an idiot trying to be super clear about that on the tutorial. I'm like, Line War is played differently from other games. So that was the key message, like, look at this so you learn how to play it. And then we're going to add the tutorial, and we see that a bit like a dictionary for the game. All the Line War tips that I've created so far, we'll be adding more of those. They'll be integrated into the game as well, so you can look, how do I do paratrooper drops, how do I do amphibious invasions, how do I do haste commands, how do I do everything. So that's going to be ended up in there. All right, so I spent forever to answer the questions. So just if you have any more questions, do at Imphenzia so I can see it. So it's still a very cheap game without the release sale. So I'm surprised how many people would say it's a waste of money. So am I, actually. And we definitely decided to go for that price point, and that's without actually recovering. But what people tend to maybe forget as well is that first of all, we developed the game, and then we plan to try to make a living out of it and recover some of this 3 years that we spent making it. And then we also have a server cost. So the servers that we spin up in the cloud, then they cost money for every minute that they run. And we found a way to, sort of optimize it, and we switched to vulture.com, which is, I'm not sponsored by them by any ways, but that was compared to Azure, that was like 4 times cheaper, I think, for the VMs. So, but we have a server cost, so for every match that's going, we have to pay for that backend to be up and running. So selling it at $15 to $19 as an indie developer studio without self-funded and everything, the economy, unless it, we're still hoping for a big development of Lionware to make it super popular. That would be absolutely fantastic. It's a cost involved in hosting it as well. So I don't think people necessarily see that part. So John M.A. Sorry, I've got super itchy nose. Don't know why that happens every time I stream. John M.A. Sandbox had unlimited pre-build. Is that a bug or on purpose? It's on purpose. You can switch off the pre-build, actually. It's Shift F11, I think. So the Sandbox purpose is to quickly be able to fast forward time, create stuff, build your own scenarios and stuff like that. So, all right, I've got some more questions here. Just at Imphenzia, that this game is very different from other games sounded so weird for me because it felt so intuitive to play. That's good. Thank you. The reason why we were freaking out about that a little bit is because I think the first time we saw some of the alpha players test it and stream it, we're like, they tried to select the units maybe, or they drew weird paths, and I'm like, oh my god, how is this going to work? How are people going to know how to play it? So that was a huge concern, and we were confident that when people get to play it and start to go, okay, this is how it works. It's still a bit of fiddling in some cases to get it right, and some situations can be tricky. But me and Christian, we played over 600 matches together, and I don't know how many hours. The average match is 300. I think we played more, actually, because we played so much. But I think if people can get to that point and really go, this is what you can do. And that's actually what's happening with a lot of people. We have some guys played over 60 hours just in the first launch week, which is crazy. So we got Quacks. Imphenzia, what part of the game did you make? We've got a perfect split between me and Christian. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier. So Christian is a very experienced .NET developer with a big 20-year background in creating complicated business applications. This is his first game, but he just took that knowledge of how to create a sound project. So the code structure, the architecture, all the programming patterns, the architecture of the entire project, splitting up the core logic with the common logic and the server logic and client logic. All of that is his work. The game design is his work. He's been balancing the units on paper for 20 years because he had a board game first. And that is key as well. You cannot come in to create a RTS game and just go, these kind of units would be pretty cool. Maybe this would be cool. These units are really, really played a lot. And they have a real distinct purpose in the game. So all the game design, I've started to contribute maybe a little bit more lately. I can add a little bit more valid points and counter arguments in some cases, but that is his main job. He also does the netcode, and he tidies up my code when I mess things up. And he does all the AI is his work. All the AI in terms of how commands, how they distribute themselves on the commands. And this is sort of where my area has been taken over. So all the modeling of the units, the animations of them, programming to generate the procedural worlds. So that was a big fun project to create this tileable or seamlessly scrollable world with all the territories and creating the borders for those, and how to offset the terrain and things, and how to generate an infinite amount of maps, how to scatter the forests and the mountains, how to get the mountain ranges, I did a lot of the shader programming for all the shaders in the game. So all the visual stuff pretty much, and sound effects and music, and then we've shared a lot of the web development and server deployment stuff. I tend to do a lot of the Linux stuff, the bash scripts, and the backend when server launches and upgrades themselves. I've done a lot of that work in Linux to automate that process. So yeah, it's been it's funny that we've actually don't really overlap much at all in terms of skill sets. So we're relying heavily on each other. Can we watch you play the game? Yeah, you can actually. I can play. I'll tell you what, you can definitely do it, but I'm going to stream on Twitch later on tonight. So if you want to see me play the game, look up Imphenzia on Twitch, and I'll make sure to play either Christian. We played a game yesterday that was really fun, actually. So either look at that one, or you can have a look when I stream next soon. Okay, so let's see. Any more questions? Okay, so King Engine, Imphenzia, how long did you work on it daily, and how long did the whole development take? Yeah, some weeks I did like 16-hour days, some weeks, for 5 or 6 or even 7 days in a row. I had some really core moments. When I did the procedural world generation, that was over Christmas time, my brain could not let it go, so I just had to make it. And then how it probes the map to create different type of paths, and how to do, I don't know, there's so many things to speak about, how to do the different biomes and stuff. So some weeks I was really, really intense. I did, like, I couldn't do anything. I woke up, I did all the, like, I developed, and then I went to sleep. And then sometimes I had to take times off. When I did the freelancing, I took 6 weeks off once to spend that on freelancing, so I could build up some funds to actually continue the development. And then in some weeks are 40-hour weeks, some are 30-hour weeks if there are like maybe family events or something, and then some holidays and stuff. And then some weeks are 50, 60 and stuff. So I think it's if I would have looked at the game and assessed how long it would take to make it, I wouldn't have estimated that. I still think we worked really fast on it, considering how much we've had to do on it. But it's a lot of hours. It's 4,300 tasks, each taking between 30 minutes to like hours to make. And I think we've calculated that we spent over 11,000. Every hour is pretty much logged. So, well, it is logged. So it's a big project with perseverance to do. So, yeah, sorry, ask, like Arvid said, do at Imphenzia. I tend to miss it otherwise. Can you show us how to export the low poly 3D character from Blender to Unity? Check my channel history, because I've got videos on that to get the correct rotation and everything. So could you show your setup, please? Depends on what setup. What setup do you mean? And then Kyle Carter, are you planning to add city terrain? Tanks struggle to get through, but infantry get bonus defense. Let's see. Or more terrain options in general, perhaps as optional extras in map generation. Yeah, we can't really do too complicated stuff, because a lot of the design decisions we made for line war, like the fact that we've only got 2 resources. We got the economy or capital and energy, because we want to make it simple. But there's tons of things you can do with it. And then for terrains, we've settled for the plains, the forests, the mountains, and the sea, just to make it very understandable. But we have been discussing about suburb concept, but I don't think it necessarily make any difference to the terrain or anything. Okay. Let's see, any more stuff here. So, Bakimoto, sorry, just tuning in now. Is there a plan to make an official announcement trailer, like 2 to 3 minutes long, on this channel? I feel it really needs it. Do you mean for Line War, or? I should announce it more. I think I've done some... I don't want to spam coverage either, because people get fed up with me. But I've tried to, when the time is right, I've tried to promote the game as much as I can, at least. But I have to be aware my target audience might not be RTS players. So sometimes the effort might be better to try to get the people that are in big RTS communities to do it. But what I want to share, I know a lot of game developers and modelers and stuff work on games and are super creative. So I want to try to share both in terms of the game development process, but also like this video in the beginning of it. If you're just tuning in now, I spend a lot of time speaking a lot about the decisions before on releasing it and leading up to it. So it's crazy. And we got Bruno's asking again here, that was asked before, but what did you use for network code? So we actually still on the old Unity 2018 using UNet, and we're right now in the process because Unity released the netcode transport in version 1.0 in March. It was in development for 3 years, and we didn't want to go until it was officially released. So we're just switching over to Unity 2021. I have to breathe. Can you make a video for Unity 3D AI enemy? Okay, so I should speak a little bit about the AI. And funny enough, I've actually got a little test project to show, because there are 2 different types of AI, or 3, I guess. But in Line War, then, like I said, Christian, or Basantos, who calls himself, when I call myself Imphenzia when we play, he did a lot of the AI in terms of when you draw commands, how should the units prioritize where to go? Which command should they follow? How should they distribute? How should the aircraft take off? What's their flight paths? Who do they decide which enemy to attack? So a lot of that AI, or all of that AI, is Christian's work. But I've done another side of the AI, and that's we use the Unity's navigation mesh to do navigation. Most modern games use flow. Let's see what it's called. Flow navigation. I forget the word now. Flow field, I think, pathfinding. So when you look at games like StarCraft 2, for example, or Supreme Commander, you'll see that all the units nearly flow like liquid. They don't collide, and they flow really good to their locations. But the mechanics in Line War is different. We actually need the units to block each other. So when you come up to a defense line, we want there to be, because it's a much slower game, so we actually have used the Unity's nav mesh system to do it. So my stuff is like, when I've generated a 3D world map of the randomized world, then that creates into a mesh, and it also creates, so it's a visual mesh with some tessellation and stuff, and then there's also a collider mesh, and then it voxelizes it, so it actually uses the nav engine, or Unity's nav mesh baking runtime to voxelize everything, and then basically like analyze the world and create a nav mesh, which is effectively just like, it creates a polygon that covers all the land masses, and one that covers all the sea areas. And then there's a matter for that's the other side of the AI, because when if a unit needs to find a path from point A to point B, you can just say, okay, this unit needs to go from here to here, and then it'll find a path there. So that's a different type of AI. It's called AI in Unity too. So, okay. Oh, Blue Mo Dice. I love your way of explaining. I literally spent 3 hours on your videos today. That's good. I'm happy to hear that, because it feels like I'm speaking forever about the same topic and that I don't really progress. But that's a bit of a contrast to the 10-minute modeling challenge, where I just speed through things. So sorry if I'm dragging a few things out. But that one thing I should say as well, don't be afraid to ask questions, even stupid ones. When I worked as an IT security consultant, I often got that type of feedback. Oh, finally I understand. And it's because I tend to not be too afraid of asking. Like, if I feel that I don't understand it, or if I think, oh, I don't even know half of this stuff, then I'm not too afraid to say it. I'm like, okay, we have to go to the bottom with this. What do we actually mean? Because sometimes I was in a room where, like, it could be 2 different, let's see, solution architects working on code. One was on the back end and one was on the client side, and I was in the middle, and I listened to them communicating with each other, agreeing on everything, thinking that they had a perfect vision of exactly what was happening. And they're like, okay, great, so let's have a meeting next week to follow up. And I'm like, hold on, guys. Do you realize that you've been speaking about 2 different things? One is still on the client side, thinking that the traffic is going this way, and the server guy's been speaking about traffic happening inside on the backbone, and they're not in agreement. So I tend to like go to the whiteboard, draw everything up, draw it like this, and go, okay, traffic is coming here, and here's a person, and I try to overly like break it down into certain things. So when I come to create tutorials and stuff and show stuff, I tend to always want to, like, I don't know, break it down into understandable chunks, maybe. All right, so let's have a look. Okay, so Laomania is saying, this is exactly true in my job often. Yeah, that's a bit of a key to success, I think. Just be prepared, and don't be afraid to ask the stupid questions and find answers of them together. So, sorry if I'm missing a few questions. I'm trying to get the... Oh, you got the... Alastor GG Imphenzia. By the way, you are the guy that admires me. I didn't know I was admiring you, but now I am, I guess. So you've got confidence. All right, let's have a look. Karsten Rieger. Line War is released. What's your plans for the future? Okay, so Line War is released, sure, but the work is only starting because, first of all, now suddenly we are in operations mode because we've released a game that relies on everything functioning, and things tend to change or break. We have we've got Microsoft Azure that's running some of the database tables. They could have outages. That could be a problem. We've got Steam matchmaking stuff for lobbies and stuff. That could be issues. We've got our servers running in the Vultr Cloud Center. We've got APIs. There's a lot of things that could break there. So unfortunately, only the two of us now. We're going to continue development, but we also have to be the two people responsible for operations and monitor and alert all these things and trigger alarms if something goes wrong and communicate to the players. We've built in the system that we can pop up messages on the client side if anything goes wrong. So, but with the future for Line War, we're very excited. We hope that the people get to play it now and actually start to understand, and we've seen a lot of people doing it and enjoying it a lot. So we want to host quarterly tournaments and have the leaderboard, of course. So we want to have a lot of, because Line War is, the cool thing that we feel about Line War is that you can see what the players are thinking by when they draw the commands. Then you know, as a spectator, you know, okay, oh, he's planning a defense there, he's going to attack there. So we think that it does quite good visually for people. So that's we were going to push forward and have tried to get as much coverage and tournaments going because it's a fun community to be with, and the matches duration is pretty good for that. And then for the future of Line War, we're adding stuff now. We're adding, first of all, we're upgrading the Unity version with the netcode. So no one will really notice that, unfortunately. So that's closest. And then we're adding Teams support. That's the idea. So 2v2, 3 versus 3, and free for all. That's a whole big new technical challenge for us, of course. And then we're adding technology, so we have to keep the units about the same, but they're going to have different type of upgrade capabilities. We don't want to overcomplicate it. We don't want to introduce a lot of new units that would require you to change like the way you draw your commands and stuff. But we see a lot of cool things that you could do with the existing units. For example, add different type of weapons that automatically fire longer range, so the cruiser would get like a cruise missile for it, and you'd have like transport capability, so infantry could jump into a tank and transport with a tank and stuff. So we're adding those type of things. And then after that, we're continuously going to do the tournament stuff, and then we're going to be adding some form of single-player content, as I mentioned earlier in the video, but it's going to be more basic stuff. So that's coming further along the line. And upgrading, I have always wanted to upgrade the visuals, even though I like the way it is now. It's very stylized, and I actually like the colors and the clarity of everything. And every time I see a screenshot online, I'm like, oh, this is Line War. I know exactly where it is. But I still want to improve the graphics and the performance over time. So we could hold up to zoom in to do little cutscenes and stuff with the units. So another level of detail and improving the units. Also improving the general UI, the experience of being in the game could do with a bit of a polish there. And then long term, we're hoping that Line War will actually like continue to progress for many years to come. If we can make the business model work. Now, we get players playing it, and we have the tournaments, we have people enjoying it, and people want to spend their money to buy it, then we could see Line War in 5 years or something ended up. It would be cool to reach like AAA quality to grow the team and really get people like specialized modelers, specialized world generating stuff, specialized operations to monitor everything. That would be really cool if we could get it. So that's what we're hoping. Grand ambitions, but it's so much fun that we don't. Yeah, we enjoy it. So Kaleidoscope, what source code editor you recommend? Well, we use Visual Studio for everything that we do, and we do everything in C#. And one really big success factor for Line War project is that we used Azure DevOps, and I still think that's free for up to 5 people. And we use that as a task management system where you create all the user stories, and you can create the tasks and monitor everything that you do. And it's like a Kanban board where you drag from planned to active to done. And then we also use that integrated source control system with a Git repository. So we create a new branch for the next release, this one, for example, and we used to call them nicknames. And when we introduced aircraft, I think we called it Hot Shots because the aircraft were so stupid. And then a sprint, like 5 sprints later, we had another sprint called Top Gun, because then we upgraded them so they could they were like Maverick in terms of their piloting skills. So we improved that, and then we checked in everything that we did within the sprint. We worked on it, and then we iteratively checked it in and synced it between our machines and tagged everything up. Christian's really good with that. I'm not as good, but I do what he tells me to do. And then I follow that work pattern as good as I can. So the entire history of the project, we could basically check it out from any day, any time of since we started in 2019, and we could check out and do a build of that one. So it's pretty cool. Let's see, any more questions? DevOps, yeah. So, Fahad, I just wanted to thank you. Ooh, learned a lot from your videos that you posted in your channel. Thanks. Great. Oh, that's one thing I'm hoping to do. I've done a lot of live streaming lately. Every Thursday I've done the live streams, and it's been such a weird and hectic period building up to the game release. And to be honest, I don't think it's necessarily going to calm down, unfortunately, because there's so much to do, and now adding the pressure of actually making sure everything works at the same time. My plan is still, and I spoke to Alex Rack in one of the admins, of course, in the Discord. Thanks. He nudged me and say, do you know what? We should probably think about the videos instead, not instead, but also in terms of the streams. And I totally agree with that. And I really, really want to create those, the way I used to, more compact videos to teach you on a specific subject or something. So that's still my ambition. So I've stuff that I've been rambling on today, for example, I've got another Google document that I've created 20, I think I titled it like 20 hardest thing of creating a multiplayer RTS. So I want to record that instead of going on for how long I've been, like 1.5 hours now. I want to compress that down into like a 10-minute video. I think I'm going to try to cap so when I release a video, it's going to be like a 10 to 12 minute view. I really need to take care of my channel a bit more, so I have to do some stuff. All right, so we've got Armin Imphenzia. I've been subbed since episode 11 on the 10-minute modeling challenge. I am now a low poly modeler and a game developer thanks to you. Wow, try to be here every Thursday. By the way, I'm 15. I'm very excited to hear that. Thanks for sharing that information, and I'm really excited for you, for what you've achieved then. That's cool as well. 15, you're doing what you like then, or love, and you keep coming back to watch this weirdo. Thanks. I really enjoy the UE5 videos. Get frustrated by the sheer amount of stuff you can do in it. Yeah, it's crazy. I have to learn that more. How do you find the time? So I've got family gaming with carpet. Your tutorials rock. I have started modeling in Blender and coding in C# in Unity thanks to your tutorials. Thanks a lot, buddy! And keep up the great work and tutorials. Thanks. I will do. I'm going to try my best to do it. The two most successful videos I've ever made are the most basic Unity tutorial ever, which was like a 2-hour video, and my low poly modeling video. So I'd be an idiot if I didn't create 2 more videos, one with the updated version 3.x of low poly modeling, because I've learned more stuff, and another video of Unity 2022 and creating a new tutorial for that. So maybe those could get the same amount of views. So Quack, have your kids played the game? Yeah, my daughter's not interested at this point. My son started to play it and we played a little bit. In the beginning he wasn't interested, but now he was, and then he actually likes it a lot, and I'm happy that he does. Oh, okay, Kaleidoscope, you were using Notepad++. Now we'll try Visual Studio. There's a huge benefit of going to Visual Studio if you're doing C# programming or any other language, I think. Unless Notepad++ has got some sort of IntelliSense, but I think it's got some stuff, but and I don't know how. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the beautiful thing when you're working in Visual Studio is that you only type a little bit of the command, and it'll suggest what you need, and it's got everything. It's just you press Control period, and it just autofills a lot of stuff. Look at my Learn Unity tutorial, because I go through the scripting part in that, and just have a peek at those sections. It's very beneficial. So. So Sound 2K, yeah, what a great start you've had. So when it comes to, actually this is public knowledge, I can share this. And I have to investigate a little bit more what I can and cannot share, of course. But this one I should be able to share here. And I can also share some figures of another sense. Oh, I'm keeping it. There we go. So there's actually something called Steam charts, where you can look at how games are doing in terms of concurrency and stuff. And just to shed some light on what to expect if you were to release a multiplayer game. So can I get back my streaming panel? There we go. Oh, did I miss a super chat? Whoa! Daniel Venel, congratulations on the release, Stefan. Thanks, Daniel. Sorry for missing the super chat. And hello, it's been a while. We have to talk again. Thank you so much. That was for the contribution and for your well wishes. It's been such a crazy period leading up to it. It's been a while since we met, but let's stay in touch. I'm terrible when it comes to communication, as usual. So thanks. And thanks, Jim, for reminding me that I missed it. I appreciate it. So let's have a look. I'm going to share a screen in a second. So Emil V, hi Imphenzia. Where can we find the game? You can find it on Steam. Just either go to linewar.com or go to Steam and just search Line War. Or go to the RTS genre and look at the second entry in the new and trending RTS games. That's where it is. Yeah, sorry, Daniel. I will do, yeah. So huge, also Link as well. Huge thank you, Stefan. You have inspired so many of us. Happy to help. Happy to do it. Okay, so and I can share a little bit about the figures and what to expect maybe. I thought yeah, let's hold on. I'll share it first. Where's my there we go. So there's something called Steam charts. So if I do this, you can actually see for games how many players they have on Steam charts. And Line War was released, let's see, on 5th of May, which was over... Okay, so I can't, for some reason, expand it. Can I do that? No, okay, it won't allow me. But our all-time peak was 300 concurrent users. And we're currently having, right now, we've got 111 people playing Line War right now. And when you create a multiplayer game, here's one thing. So a lot of people are probably going in the minds of thinking, I'll create a multiplayer game. It could be a first-person shooter. Maybe you'll do like maybe a map where you play 3 versus 3, or you have like 8 or 10 people, or maybe like a Call of Duty where you've got 30 people, or maybe I'll do a Battle Royale with 100 people. So Line War, remember, you need to match one more person in the world that's looking. So if you've got 111 players here playing right now, then maybe say 80 of these are in matches right now playing against each other. And we know that or it could be a few people in the sandbox too. But for a game where you play 1v1, when someone hits play now in the matchmaking queue, they need to find another player in the world somewhere. And the benefit of having a 1v1 game in that case is that it only needs to be one more person somewhere in the world that's looking for a match. And in terms of Line War, it's good too, because we've created a game that's not very latency dependent at all. A lot of first-person shooters, you need to regionalize it to have like a European player pool, North American, Asian, and Australia and New Zealand in their own. And Line War, we've actually got players playing in New Zealand connecting to our server in Amsterdam and playing against Europeans or someone in the US and stuff, and they don't notice any lag. So it's literally one more person that needs to find a match at any point. But then it does actually split a little bit in terms of a player pool, because we don't just want to match the best player against the worst player. So one concern is that to get good, enjoyable matches, you need to have people in the same skill brackets. And if you look here, we've got on Line War, we've got this leaderboard. And we've got the leaderboard contains these skill points. And you can see that they're ranging from up to 44.3 here. So when someone looks for a game, it'll actually look, okay, so let's say someone here presses play now. It'll start to search plus -2 in skill points. And then if you can't find a player there, it'll start expanding the search. And you can prioritize to keep it tight. Or if you want to search wider, to just prioritize finding a match. And these have all players that have started playing the game in 1 week ago, because we reset the leaderboard exactly 1 week ago. And when you look at some of the players here, like the top guys won 54 games and lost only 5. Very good player. This guy played a lot during the demo session. Someone said my nickname sucks. He's already got nearly 70 matches behind him. And I think I spotted someone here. This guy's played 102 wins and 54 losses. So what I'm trying to say in terms of just showing other people is I've actually looked up war pips. So let's see if I can do another one. That was because we keep comparing as well to some other titles to see like what we can expect and how many players other people have got maybe. So with those type of player counts, because another concern I think has been a lot like when you look at third-party solutions on terms of concurrency users, someone's like going to look at a pricing plan and it says 100 concurrent users, and you go, ooh, my game is easily going to be like 500 concurrent or 1,000 concurrent or something. So I can't buy that. It's going to be too expensive for me. But keep in mind that actually having the amount of players, the concurrency may not be as grand as you are planning. And for Line War, we've developed it a lot. We've spent a fair amount on trying to promote it in terms of reaching out to reach influencers and stuff like that. But it's very, very difficult to get those type of numbers, I'd say. So think about that when you're making multiplayer. All right, let's see. We've got Justin Fats. I bet those Steam charts stats affect how well the game ranks in the Steam store. I wouldn't be surprised if the game devs created bot players to pad stats to increase the game's exposures. That's an idea. Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to have the computers to do it then, I guess, as well. But I don't know if it's necessarily worth it either, because that would be just... I mean, imagine how many things you'd try to get it up. I don't think... in desperations, maybe it could be an attempt, but I'm not sure. Maybe for... I wonder if big studios do that even, as a marketing thing. All right, so Jenny Martin. Hi, Imphenzia. Thanks for all your YouTubes that you post. You're welcome. I'm happy to help. Try to do my share of sharing what I know. So... Griefy Lee thinks Windows 11 sucks. I actually like it a lot. Quacks, how do you guys combat cheating? Okay, that's a good idea. That's a good thought. We have spoke about game development and multiplayer and about cheating. One of the biggest things for our anti-cheat is the fact that we didn't go peer-to-peer. Because if that would make sense from maybe a financial perspective, where people like someone becomes the server and hosts the game, but we would be very concerned about hacking in that case. That one could just run an in-memory cheat or modify the game executable. And then you could have maybe he could reveal everything, or his units would, or hers for that matter, would like move faster or whatever. So that's one of the main reasons why we have the servers all running in the cloud and we control those servers. So clients can only connect and they can draw the commands and they'll send a request. Can I draw a command here? And the server will go, yes, you can. And then it sends back the command. And then all the units are spawned on the server. It takes control of all the units spawning, the movement and everything. So even if you were to speed up the clock or something in your game client, it would just jitter instead. It'll move faster and then snap back because the server keeps sending you what the truth is all the time. So that's one of the things that we're doing to combat cheating, but there's always going to be methods for cheats. So depending on what type of attack vectors people find and how they can exploit the game, we're going to try to monitor, capture it, and mitigate it on a need. It's a shame that there's such a big thing with cheating, unfortunately, because it feels like you could have spent that time doing a lot of other stuff. But I'm pretty sure that if a game becomes popular, there's going to be a lot more cheats. So, Miles Casey, I've used your rigging tutorials like 1,000,000 times. That's cool. You got a lot of characters then. No, but that's good to hear. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's easy to come back to. So, okay. Do you know what, guys? I think I'm gonna... my daughter's making homemade pizza today. I'm tempted to go and eat it before she goes to sleep. We've got greetings from Stockholm for Seri93. Greetings from Nynäshamn back. We're very near, close. Yeah, Santos K says map vision hacks are extremely hard to combat in such games. Yeah, over time we're going to improve even more to make sure that everything is just like what the client is meant to see is there. So, but I'm sure we're going to be revisiting that topic in many times, and it's a balance of how much effort you can put in and how big of a problem it is. So, Link, Sir Imphenzia. You don't have to say Sir, just say Imphenzia. But sounds posh. When you were brand new to Blender with tons of ideas, what advice would you give to us when you were back and did not know much about modeling in Blender? Express your frustrations. Well, I only had one major frustration with Blender, and that was the right-click thing to select. I could not get my hand around it. I know you could switch, but I had a problem with it because it broke some other stuff. But after 5 attempts, I went into Blender and I finally learned it, and I found that the low poly modeling workflow in Blender I find excellent. So I always go and tip about this. It's like create simple objects and repeat it over and over again. Start with super simple, like a computer, a monitor, a very basic high-rise, a letterbox, a piece of cheese, a pizza, hamburger, anything you can think of. Just model it over and over again. And then as I went along, I just learned new and new. Oh, this is a shortcut. This is good. Oh, I can do loop cuts. Oh, I can extrude. I can do Alt-E and extrude face normal, so I don't have to like extrude them all individually. And then gradually I just learned more and more. And repeating the process over and over is good. So let's see, at Imphenzia, I'm trying to capture and see Old Man Animations. I'm new to Unity and love playing video games, and I would love to spend my life making games and living from them. I wonder if making mobile games for the App Store can give me a living. Okay. I think if Steam is saturated, then the App Store is even more so. And from what I understand, when people release, or when big companies release games on the App Store, for example, or on the Play Store, they pump. Unfortunately, it's the sad reality is that there's, I think, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, unfortunately, goes into promoting them with aggressive video ads just to hammer it into the faces of like, get this game, and it'll show over and over again. And usually those adverts show the person failing in the game, and you go, oh, I could do that better, and I'll install it. But then there are, of course, some successful. I think back in the day when like Crossy Roads came, they developed Crossy Roads in like 6 weeks. This is quite a few years ago now. And it's if it's got like a catchy gameplay that's addictive, and enough people catch on, you could maybe catch some sort of a viral train, but I wouldn't count on those viral trains. They're very difficult to catch. So I don't even know what criteria. It has to be the right type of game in the right moment, that's spotted at the right time. And then even then, I think there's a great chance of it not succeeding. And I see a lot of people saying like, oh, that game was lucky because it got featured. And I think usually those games that really succeed, they have something special in them. It could be that the feedback loop and the core mechanic and playing on your psychedelics, I nearly said, on your mind, to really get you to draw you back into to playing that game over and over again. And usually the UIs are really polished. It's everything is very tactile and expressive, and it feels like it's been really, really polished. So creating a game to make a living out of it in the App Store would unfortunately be very, very difficult. So my advice would be, in that case, to make games and learn the process of deploying them. Create them, see how they work, see how they play. Try to just promote them to the extent that you can, and then try to aim for like doing it as a side thing rather than a full-time. If you rely on the income from that from day one, unfortunately, it's so many people that want to do it that it'd be very difficult. So maybe try to secure some sort of an income in something. I did IT, where, I mean, since I knew IT, I did that, and then I did IT security because I slipped into that track, and meanwhile I always kept the creative thing, and then finally in the end I could start shifting over. But chasing the full indie developer dream, a lot of people are striving for it, but I think most people would probably find it the happiest moment could be if they can balance like a secure day job, and then find so that they can balance it with and then shift over maybe at the right time. So I spoke again. Check the Laomania. I did a video with the Laomania for Fireworks Mania around the new year. So check that video out, because we spoke a lot about making a living off making games. But I think, yeah, I'm a bit uncertain about the mobile market compared to the PC market these days. So Baldman Animations, I loved your content, man. Thanks for existing in my life. You're welcome. I'm happy to be existing in at this moment in time. A lot of people should appreciate the fact that they just exist. I think it's easy to forget these days that it's quite crazy. I was speaking to my son the other day, and this is a bit off topic, but it was he gave me the best answer I've ever gotten to any weird question. And I'm quite interested in space, some people might know. And then I said to him, like, what was it? Isn't it weird, I said, that all the matter that we're looking at right now, like all the iron and stuff, and especially the heavy elements, isn't it weird that they were created in a supernova, like in a giant explosion? And my son's literal reaction is like, do you know what, Dad? Wouldn't it be weird if it wasn't created by a supernova or something. And it made sense, yeah, like how could it just, like, it requires some massive event for something like that to be created. So in his mind, it was made perfect sense that that's how it was created. So it was weird if it wasn't created that way. Thought that was pretty cool. So what I was trying to say with that, just off on a tangent, is that it's pretty cool to be alive just and be able to do these things. We should enjoy our little moment here on this planet. Weird. Okay. Kaleidoscope at Imphenzia in orange. Do that if you want me to definitely see it. I'll try my best to see it. Do you have a server? And so, which one? Rack, blade, or tower? I've got a server in my attic and it's never been connected up. If anyone wants to buy it or even have it, let me know. But you have to pay the shipping then, I guess. Because the problem is, back with this is like 10 years ago or something, I had these ideas that I was going to host my own thing, but I didn't. Now, like, we just run things in the cloud. It's so much easier and it's so cheap. I think one Line War server that spins up and hosts six simultaneous matches on the same server, so it's serving 12 players. I think that costs, is it $20 a month or something, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd make more sense to, if you're going to develop stuff, don't buy your own hardware and host it. I know big game companies, they usually run the bulk core on their own server farms, and then they do the dynamic top flexing between different day hours and stuff. They do that in the cloud. But you'd have to have some serious infrastructure and operations teams and investments, and it's not worth it. So we've got San2K, Imphenzia. Have you done or considered collaborating with Jason Wyman and his gang, who are also doing game dev streams on Sundays? I haven't actually, not specifically because I don't want to, because that would be cool. I just it's been too much going on at the moment, so I haven't really had time. Arvid is telling me to get the pizza. Time to get my pizza. Yeah, I agree. I have to go up. But I'm open to do collaborations at some point, but I don't know how to find the time to connect and plan those things yet. And I still have my discussions going on with GameDev.tv because I want to do a course for them and for you guys. So, and a lot of you know Grant Abbott, who's there. So he does a lot of content for them. So I've been chatting briefly to him, which has been really exciting. So we'll see. All right. Do you know what? I'm going to go and eat my pizza now. So that's going to be it for this week. So sorry, I hope you found some useful stuff. If you're interested in releasing a game and when it comes to making decisions, planning, some of the concerns that you might have, issues with multiplayer versus single player, challenges that you have to face and overcome, and everything, check this video again if you came in late, if you joined me late. And I did one similar to this last week where I spoke about the initial release, and then I'm going to do one more thing and that's going to compact the whole thing into maybe a compact video that can help a lot of people maybe to learn what's difficult and what's not so difficult to release a game. So, but next week I'm planning to do something more creative during the actual stream. So how about a modeling session or something like that? We should boot up Blender again and do a little bit of creative stuff in there. I think that would be fun. So yeah, thanks Arvid. Check out Line War on, you can either go to linewar.com, we just have freshened up that webpage a little bit, and you can also, on Steam, follow the link in the description there that Arvid just posted. Search for Line War. It would do us a huge favor if you could help us, and do you know what? I think you might even like the game. If you play it, and if you're even the slightest interested in the strategic gameplay, whether you're coming from like board games or chess even, because it's like an RTS chess, or if you're from a faster paced RTS world and stuff like that, give it a go. I think we're having a good time. And if anyone wants to watch, I'm going to try to stream on my Twitch channel tonight. I'm going to try to play a game either against Christian, the other developer, or if he's asleep, which he might be, then I might play against some of the people in the Discord there. So thanks a lot, everyone, and take care, and I'll see you next Thursday at the latest. So stay creative and yeah, have fun.